Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Sunday. We got another quick little podcast ready for you. We're going to try and keep the time down today, but you never know when these minds meet. You never know what's going to happen. Sips, ladies and gentlemen. It's a happy Father's Day homebrew I've got here. I will let you know I did have some bad chicken compliments at the Queensland Country Bank Stadium yesterday. Thank you very much for not cooking my chicken properly. I kind of hoed into it a little bit before I realised, hang on, something's not right here. And fortunately, I didn't come home 8 hours later and regurgitate it all into the sink, which is always a good thing. But it seems to have fired up the other end this morning. So I've had a couple of trips. I may need to make an emergency trip. I'm trying to kill it with a bit of home brew. Hopefully, that'll sort things out. Or make it worse. I don't know. We're going to find out. But I feel like a beer. It's Father's Day, and I'm here with you guys today. A little bit of housekeeping. I've noticed that more and more people are subscribing on YouTube, but the views don't seem to be going up. With the exception of the Australia March for Australia thing, which got close to 1,000 views on YouTube, which is pretty good for YouTube because normally we're only pulling maybe 40 to 50 views on YouTube. But there's close to 500 subscribers. So what's going on there? If you are watching from YouTube, can you let me know? Do you get the notifications? Like, I don't know if you got to go in there and click a bell or something like that to make it work, because it's one of those things you hear quite a lot about YouTube censorship and how they're not letting channels like this get their thing going. Homebrew fixes everything. That's all I needed to know. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Good old homebrew. Can't go wrong with it. So, look, we'll do a couple of little things as well. I'd like to bring to people's attention something that has just come across from email. I want to thank Mark for sending this to me. Cheers, mate. Keep left. Melbourne Lord Mayor wants to police walking. Yep, you heard it right. They want to police how you walk. Imagine being fined by the government just for walking on supposedly the wrong side of the footpath in your own city. Sounds like satire, but it's real. Lord Mayor Nick Rees is pushing an outrageous plan for Melbourne. He wants to slap ordinary people with fines and maybe even confiscate phones if we don't walk exactly where he says. Instead of tackling real issues like crime, drug use, he's obsessed with micromanaging the way we walk in public. This is pure Big Brother. We're talking about government overreach on a scale that treats every Melburnian like they're a child. Nobody voted to turn Melbourne into a giant authoritarian playground. Australians don't want the nanny state following them down the street. In fact, that's what we've been saying about Victoria for a good 20 years now. That, you get those little slogans on the bottom of the license plate, green state or fucking education state. Well, Victoria is the nanny state, 100%. That's exactly what they've been doing, piece by piece, and they are slowly implementing lunacy of a level like this. And, I thought the Townsville City Council was a corrupt bag of shit, but it looks like Melbourne's stepping up to the plate to go, and hang on, Townsville, nah, you can't be more corrupt than us. We are going to show you what totalitarianism looks like. And here we go. So if you're particularly Victorian, you might want to jump onto this one. I'm going to punch it here into the comments. Of course, it'll also be available on Telegram for those of you who can't get comments coming through or can't click on this link for whatever reason. I'm just going to punch it into my Telegram thing as well. So you can go to my Telegram account there, North Queensland Freedom Network on Telegram, and all these kinds of things I tend to drop here, including those links. So for you YouTubers out there who like to use YouTube for whatever fucking reason, personally, I try to avoid it like the plague. I recommend Rumble. I do post the links to all the channels that I run, and the show, before the show starts. Sometimes it's a day before, sometimes it's an hour before. You just got to keep an eye on it. Sorry, I'm subject to how things sort of work out for us. But anyway, you might want to jump onto this one and get that going. Also, I noticed that Proton Mail, for those of you who are a bit concerned about AI, would like to use it, but are a bit concerned about it. Proton Mail have actually created a safe AI, if there is such a thing. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look at it. I only just noticed it this morning. It's called Lumo. So, it's another one that people might want to look at lumo.proton.me. and sign as a guest. You can use it for free. Hey, test it out. Let me know, ladies and gentlemen, especially those of you who are a little bit more tech minded than some of the other people. Get in there and give it a go. Have a look into it and see what you think. Let me know. I haven't had time to look into it. It's just something that's come across my plate this morning, so I just thought I'd share that and see what you guys think. I haven't even used it yet, so I'm not recommending it. It's a case of, hey, community support. Let's get together and figure this one out, because this is your network. I'm just the host. So speaking of which, being just the host, I better bring in the guest, the wonderful Heidi Ward. How are you?
Good morning. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you very much. I got me omelette this morning, so thanks Zach for cooking that up for me. Poor little Rain has no idea what's going on. Astrid did. And my other son's sort of sitting there on the couch going like this with his headphones on. He hasn't said a word to me today. Maybe they'll have mentioned it, and he's hopefully out there watching. He's gone, oh, Struth, I forgot to say Happy Father's Day to Dad. So anyway, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about my gripes in the world. What are particulars? Heidi, please give us a little bit of a rundown of what exactly particulars are, because it's something I don't think many people are aware of.
Well, before I go there, I have to say I'm extremely tired given the week that I've had, and I've also been unwell. I had a paralysis tick in my neck, so bear with me as well. And before we start, I have to make it very clear this is information only. It is not legal advice. It can be Googled, just to clarify that. But essentially, it's a culmination of things that have happened to me over the last 8 years. So I'm not going to go through that, but in brief, I've been taken to court by the police 3 times for 2.4 years. 3 of those matters were discharged at the pip of the post the morning of court with no evidence to provide. Further, the other one I won in 11 minutes. And then we've had a current case at the moment that was a mentally ill neighbour with no prima facie evidence that went to court, whereby the police, I believe, stormtrooped my house and injured 2 people in my home. That has been going for 2 years, 4 months and 5 days before it went to trial recently. And during that period of time, I prosecuted those involved. So I had basically a dual trial going on. Whilst prosecuting those involved, I learnt the system of how to prosecute, and I was met at blocks all the way. You can't do this. You've got to have further and better particulars. They didn't have to submit to the jurisdiction of the court until the particulars were correct, yada, yada. So in the end, that got struck out with costs for lack of further and better particulars when the evidence and the particulars were filed in court and they were substantial.
Now,
anyway,
I'm just going to chime in because the question popped in my head, which I'm kind of feeling the telepathic surge of those watching are probably asking the same question.
Yeah.
What is the difference between particulars and evidence?
Okay, so further and better particulars. So let's say you get a charge. So you could have from what I understand, a notice of appearance or a notice to attend, a bail document, or a summons and complaint. So in my private prosecutions, it's summons and complaint, and they have to be taken into the court, sealed, signed, and served on the other party. Particulars are, if I can say, that you could say you've been charged with this said offence. That's not the particulars. It is the grass was 2.5 centimetres tall. It was green. The trees were swaying behind you. The sky was blue. So the actual particulars of what occurred. So it would be suffice to say you obstructed a police officer. It'd have to say you obstructed a police officer by way of using your left leg, using your right leg, blah, blah, blah. This is how you obstructed. The reason why. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't know what you're coming to court for. Okay, obstructed. Yeah. How did I obstruct? What did I do? So those particulars are the reason you know what to answer or defend yourself in court. So that's what further and better particulars, as I understand them to be, and what the court explained them.
So fundamentally, before you can even enter a plea, if you wish to do such a thing, it's another topic unto itself. But you should have the particulars so that you know what you're pleading guilty or not guilty to.
Yeah, and look, you've just raised a point which I might clarify whether you choose to. I am going straight down the tennis court playing tennis. I'm not into straw man or anything in this case, right? And I think the reason I'm bringing this to the table today is because the lack of confidence we now have in police, courts, government, etc. And I'm not Desi, right? But what's happening in the commentary that's happening on that live on social media. And my concern is if we're not getting justice using the Justices Act, we have a problem. So whether you choose to make a plea, not a plea, let's say, you have to make a plea, right? Because the Justices Act, you have to, otherwise the magistrate will put it in on your behalf.
Yeah.
But theoretically, if you don't know what you're pleading to, how can you plea?
Yeah.
So to me, it appears in our Justices Act, there's a contrary, what would I say? One part of it says, after you make a plea, you will then get your particulars. Yet 42 of the Justice Act talks about summons and complaints, and they have to have the particulars. And many high court cases, and I've got those here, talk about particulars. And in fact, without the particulars, there's no jurisdiction of the court because you have nothing to answer. So the particulars actually enliven, from what I understand, the jurisdiction of the court. So what they do is notice to appear, bench sheet, which neither of those are filed, sealed or served in the court, and then summons and complaint in some cases. So it's Form 3 or Form 4 that can be used in different people's cases.
Now, is this what we're talking about here, Section 42, Division 1 of the Justices Act?
Yeah, commencement of proceedings, yeah.
Yeah. So, as we can see, we're just discussing things that are readily available on the internet. We're not giving legal advice. We are just talking about things that are there.
Well, they say that, not abiding by the law is no excuse to not knowing the law, but we're not taught the law. So we've got all these different types of legislation that we get in trouble for if we talk about, but they are absolutely 100% available. But then there's other parts of different acts that I see that say that they can commence a proceedings with a bench sheet or a notice to appear. And I wouldn't disagree with that if that bench sheet had the actual particulars on it and was also signed, sealed, and stamped by the court and served on you correctly. I get it. So, unfortunately, from what I've seen in my own case, that's not the case. And literally my last case is 2 years, 4 months, and 5 days. And it went to trial over a 6-day period. And so the trial was 10th of April, and on the 9th of April, I received an email from the court, which is in my transcript, that the magistrate said that he asked the registry to get the particulars from prosecution. Now, if prosecution hadn't provided the particulars, what's the magistrate doing asking the registry, 1, to get them? And 2, that email actually said the only correspondence required from the parties is receipt of the particulars. And in my case, they changed the particulars to what the charge was and raised that the morning of court to make it a lesser offence, removing certain words from those particulars. And if you remove those certain words from those particulars, the only particulars in my case is that I turned my head. So there is no charge. Yeah. And if you don't have those particulars, I would say that's a lack of disclosure if you're only getting it the day before or the morning of, because you've got the right to prepare for court, to know what you're doing, especially if you're going into a trial. Because really, they actually read it to you. They say prosecution must prove beyond reasonable doubt every element of the particulars they have provided.
Right.
So it narrows down and would save a lot of time for the court if you knew that that's actually what it was. not only if you had a lawyer or solicitor, that the lawyer and solicitor should potentially not, that those particulars should have been in court the entire time, and what those particulars are before the day of the trial. Otherwise, what were they defending you on?
Yes.
Right. So what happens as I see it, what would I know? I've only been to court nearly 200 times, but it appears the brief of evidence, which is called the general brief, and the evidence is not filed in the court in any way, shape or form. It stays with the police, and they're really just hearsay. They're not signed. There's no signatures. They say they've signed under oath under 110A of the Oaths Act, whereas that's really only for an indictable offence, if you want to Google that I can see. So really that's why we have so many people getting upset about when they're getting their particulars that they're wrong or they're what have you, and they can be because they're not filed on oath, and therefore when they get to, you know, taking you to trial, they can simply say, oh, there's no evidence to provide.
Any particular part of this Oaths Act you wanted to bring in, sorry?
I think it's 110A of the Oaths Act, which is on the police statements.
Have I got the right Oaths Act? Because it seems to stop at 48.
Sure. It's on the back of the police
It's
statement.
the Queensland one. I've got Queensland Oaths Act up here.
I'd have to find it. I've got that much paperwork around me at the moment. Yeah, don't quote me on that. But basically on the back, whatever the section of the Act is, it's not sealed by JP. And in most cases, when you're getting your QP9s, which are police statements or witness statements, they're either witnessed by themselves, not witnessed at all. They're certainly not Justice of Peace stamped. And in many occasions, they're not signed at all. So the relevance of that, and then if you're signing that you swear that anything in your statement is the truth, and you know you could be prosecuted if found that it's not, and then you sign in that box, and then you sign yourself as a witness, it's all over the shop. So you ask many questions about that, but I'll just give you, I've just got it on the other computer. From my research, you've got Rowe versus Kemper, and the magistrate has no inherent jurisdiction. It only gets the power from a valid complaint filed. A complaint that does not disclose the offence is a nullity. Stanton versus Abernethy, a complaint without particulars is bad on the face, and any conviction based on this is void. So then you have Johnson versus Miller. The accused must be told the exact act alleged. Walsh versus Tattersall, last-minute amendments that surprise the accused is a denial of fairness. Late disclosure or amendments can be a miscarriage of justice in R versus Hampson, and the Crown must disclose everything, whether it helps or hurts them. So what we're seeing is potentially...
So in the case of what they've done to you then, you know, they've filed particulars and then gone and changed them. Now,
and
I
then
can't
they
help
made
but feel that
the day before.
Is that a kind of perjury even?
In the next day in trial, the barrister then advised me, without having a copy of the particulars, advised me that they'd removed the aggravating elements because it potentially should have been in that court, potentially should have been in a higher court, and they would have run out of time. So they removed that, and then they didn't arraign me. It was serious assault by way of spitting and biting. I didn't obstruct. I didn't do anything. I was handcuffed to the ground after they ambushed my house, and I said I spat at my own nose, and I have medical records to show the injuries. Anyway, they removed the words spitting and biting, and the particulars themselves, which I have here, I won't say names, but it says turning her head towards so-and-so constable and spitting towards senior constable. The spittle did not strike senior constable. The defendant is charged on the basis of an attempted application of force. Now, if you remove spitting and biting from those particulars, it simply says turning her head towards senior constable's leg, the did not strike constable. So there's nothing to charge me on. But what gets worse is the magistrate went on through the whole proceedings, and so many things went wrong, which is part of my appeal. But he actually ended up charging me with 341B AI after they'd actually amended the charge to the lower one, removing the aggravation, and then hurled abuse at me to saying spitting is vile and blah, 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 blah. And then he used a court precedent to tell me how serious the offence is that I did, using a Maori gang. I forget what it is. I've got it. A Maori gang who bashed up a police officer. And that's how serious my offence was.
Vastly different to having your face shoved into the ground and turning your head.
Correct. But not only that, they changed the charges without disclosure. They said it in court. And then I was charged on the original one, not the one they charged, using seriousness and whatever happened. And they're ignoring it. So through the appeal process now, from get-go to where I'm at now, there's been 84 mistakes that I can see. My appeal went missing. I asked if there was a response from the police, so I contacted the registry, and the registry actually went looking for it to find out what happened, and they put me on hold, and when they came back, they said they'll be looking into it, but they forgot to hang up the phone. And in them not hanging up the phone, they started belittling me and saying some serious stuff about me. And in that conversation,
did you happen to record it?
Oh, I happened to record it. Yes, I did. 11 minutes.
Awesome.
That's currently with the Judicial Commissioner. But in that conversation, I overheard them saying that they'd sent my appeal to potentially the wrong email address. So long story short, I contacted the DPP to ask them if they had carriage of the material because of what I'd overheard, and they hadn't had carriage of it. Don't know where it went. Haven't been given any answer to that. And then
that's a potential breach of privacy.
Oh, it's a massive potential breach of privacy. That's not the first. It gets better. So then, from there, no apologies. Judicial Commissioner has come back and said that they are looking into it. DPP acknowledged they had receipt of the carriage of all the material on the 7th. I proceeded to say, well, they're out of time, and writing a submission to say they should be barred because they're out of time. And they sent me a certificate of exhibit trying to say that I'd sent it to the wrong address because I took my copy to the police station. But the respondent on that certificate of address is actually the senior sergeant. So now I have documents that say Commissioner of Police, QPS, DPP, Tony Hayward, and R. So I have 5 separate parties on the documents. That is the respondent. And on the 222 form that you fill for an appeal, it actually says, if the respondent is a police officer, name the station they work, not name the individual. But then they've given me this certificate to try and make up for the lack of time or blame it on me. And it's clearly named on there who, I'm not going to mention names, who it is. So basically, I filed my application to bar the police from that, and that was heard on 2nd. In between time, they have further sent documentation to somebody that lives in this area who contacted me that she had my private information. Still not acknowledged it. She has the recall or whatever thing. She did the right thing. Anyway, and I gave permission for her to give it to me. She hasn't given it to anyone else. So then from there, we went to have the application heard to bar the police on the 2nd of this week. And I recorded myself because of the multitude of what's going on here, like essentially fraud, I alleged, changing charges, this sort of thing. And because I'm starting to get very concerned in relation to the Legal Service Commissioner suing me for giving legal advice, saying that I could potentially be a danger to the public when there's been no damage done to anyone. So consequently,
Exactly, which kind of answers the question that Batman 420 has pointed out here. How controversial is this show in your country? So I'm actually curious what country you're watching this from, Batman. Gotham City, perhaps, somewhere in fictional America, I'm not sure. But anyway, jokes aside, just to fill you in, this podcast is actually being drawn in as evidence of for another case against Heidi. So that should give you some indication of the controversy. And as
right. So,
Opera Ham has pointed out, it's probably on E. Karen's radar along with the police. Yes, it is. It's in the courts as well. So it's that controversial.
There is a new senior sergeant at the Whitsunday station, and whilst a lot of people, including myself, haven't had faith in much of that, I will commend him from what he's done recently for me and his manners, and he has done everything that he's promised me he is going to do, and he's aware of this situation. So I'm grateful for that. So anyway, when we went into this application the other day, not only was I not introduced to who the Miss Moss was, what department she was from, or anything, which meant she didn't have jurisdiction to commence, because you've got to introduce yourself to enliven jurisdiction. The judge asked me, what are we here for, essentially? And I said, well, you've got the application in front of you. And I was very polite, and I said, if I may take 3 minutes of your honour's time to raise a submission. And he cut me off, went straight back to her, asked her what it was about, then asked if there was a transcript in relation to the matter, which is not the matter that was in front of the court that day. That's in relation to my appeal that's being heard later. This was a matter of law, whether or not the police could submit submissions because they were outside of their time frame, which they admitted in that video that they were outside the time frame. However, that they had now supplied me with written submissions on the 28th, which I had not got, didn't have them. And I've said, what submissions? What submissions? What submissions? And then rather than adjourning it for a moment to double check, because this individual had also sent that certificate of address to the wrong address. I don't have that in writing. So by this stage, I'm like, what's going on here? She's trying to strike out my application, and she starts going into the reasons why and this and that was not about that day. So it was a mention. She was not supposed to be bringing up all this information, and it was my application, so I should have been allowed to speak first. And here she is trying to strike out my application before I'd even had a chance to speak, telling me that she served documentation on me that I haven't received. So that's where the trigger went off in me, and I'm like, well, who are you? Who's this? What's going on? I haven't got this material. And lo and behold, and that's why I was under pressure. I drew an application, set down another one. It was set down. And now I'm worried about my appeal because of the control that they have, that I'm not getting a fair hearing, and that the judge allowed that to happen. I was quite shocked. So I did, I did for my safety, post it on my Facebook because of what we're seeing happening with a lot of other people at the moment. So it's in full view, and I can't see the problem because I was at home. It was only of me. The judge's name was not mentioned, and we don't have a first name for the whoever she was representing, right? So the consequence of that is they set down a new mention that afternoon at 2:00, which I wasn't advised of, which I only stumbled across by ringing the registrar about something. Then they set down another appearance and said I could not appear by telephone, that I had to appear in court. Otherwise, the 3 times I've been told that the judge said, if I don't abide by his orders, my appeal is likely to be struck out. So that was heard in my absence, with the matter being adjourned, and I received directions from the court. And they're very basic directions, whether you want to file something or not file something. The police have now been given additional time. However, again, I was threatened if I didn't follow the directions of the court, my appeal would likely to be struck out. But apart from appearing at the appeal, I don't have to. I don't have to put any more submissions in if I don't want to. And I'm not going to not appeal at my own appeal. So I don't understand the reason.
The burden of proof is on the accuser, isn't it?
Well, I don't understand why they're actually saying if you don't follow directions, your appeal is likely to be struck out. That's a threat.
Yeah.
Right. So I've asked for a copy of those sealed orders from the court, and also those orders were riddled with spelling mistakes. Instead of the appellant, it said the application, and they've been since amended. But I've asked for a copy, and I've actually been told in writing I will not be getting a sealed copy of the court orders.
What?
Now I've looked that up, and pursuant to, as I understand, rules 661 and 662 of the UCPR, they must give me a copy of the orders. Anyway, consequently from there, I had a further appeal on Friday in the Supreme Court regarding the Legal Service Commissioner. I was banned from appearing by telephone, and that was in Brisbane. I've showed them pictures of my tick bite, everything, but I couldn't travel. I couldn't get a flight. No, wasn't allowed to appear. So in my plight to try and explain why I did what I did, which isn't that what the law is all about, that before you're accused of something, before the right people, you've got the right to explain why.
Yeah.
And I found out that the Chief Justice of Queensland was presiding that day. And unfortunately, there is judicial immunity, but the Chief Justice is named in my as a named person in my appeal. I'm not going to say why, but she is named. So for her to preside would be wrong, or potentially there is high court precedent. So I sent information to the registry and said that she should recuse herself in this regard. And also I raised my own Supreme Court precedent that I made, reason I'm being sued by the Legal Service Commissioner indirectly, at paragraph 38 in HZX versus QPS QSC 168, that what appearance meant, I was still ignored. So I logged in, went to the court daily list. Not only was it Legal Service Commissioner v. Ward, which it should have been Ward v. Legal Service Commissioner because it was my application, there was the dial-in numbers on there, which anyone can dial in, which means anyone can record, and you wouldn't know. Yep. So there's no privacy because it's a public court, which I dialed into, and when my matter was raised, I appeared pursuant to paragraph 38 of HZX. And the irony is that it is my precedent, and she made the judgment. You couldn't read about it, right?
Wow.
So she asked if it was me. I said it was. And she asked the bailiff to hang up on me.
What?
Yep. So then I had already been given leave for my full appeal in front of 3 judges in Brisbane in regards to the actual injunction that the Legal Service Commissioner has brought on me. And I was raising the elements of an injunction, whether they had been met. And one of those is that, damage has occurred, and there hasn't been any damage at all. So I then got an email from the Court of Appeal to say that my privilege had been removed or rescinded, and I no longer am allowed to appear by telephone in the Supreme Court for my own appeal due to the fact I had breached the district court rules, which in fact I haven't breached the district court rules because I wasn't in the court, I was at home. So
what, when they say you breached it, what was the breach?
I filmed myself.
You filmed yourself?
Yep, in my own matter, because of what
from
I was
home
watching.
With a publicly available court proceeding that anybody could have done.
Yeah, anyone could have logged in and listened to what happened, and now I'm being breached. Well, I've been told.
Does that lead us to this case that we found on Constitution Watch here?
Kyriakis versus court.
Yeah. which is, an application to audio record judicial review process by self-presented party, whether express written permission should be granted, open statutory discretion to give such permission, relevant considerations, ensuring court security, principles of open justice and free communication of information, human right to freedom of information, including to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds, which is very interesting. Isn't that something what we're doing right now?
It's slightly different because I didn't seek an application.
Yeah.
But for the amount of times that I have been in court, honestly, this, if I was to put in an application, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be granted it, because I don't think what I'm talking about now would like to be, this is the reason we're doing this podcast. So it's very strange, the non-ability. I would agree if someone recorded someone else's private details and sent them, but anyone can walk into the public court, listen to it, and most of all, the media have rights to do this and go in and record. Now, the media, in my case, in 120 newspaper articles, never once verbatimly got the matters correct. And they dramatise the story to sell newspapers. They do their juicy little headlines, etc. So it's very odd that they can do that with a media release, and you yourself, especially in my case, it was just myself. I didn't film the others. Their voices were in the background. And yet the media can take photos of you, chase you up the steps, put them
harass
in the case,
and annoy and
all of that sort of thing. And that seems to be okay.
Mm.
So anyway, I have put a further application on those grounds to seek that I can appear by telephone again. However, I also am concerned about stepping into a courtroom to what potentially might happen. So I only want
you never know what kind of drastic measures they're going to use to just imprison you for whatever trumped up charge they conjure up.
That's right. So, and I know I haven't done anything wrong. And the irony is that in my time of what I've seen, the hundreds and thousands of mistakes, misconduct, bad administration, blah, 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 I'm the one that's being sued. And I'm the one that's not a lawyer, solicitor, barrister. And it's just, it's you know, it's just, it's bewildering to me, considering that this current case, they might have finally potentially got me on something that's under appeal at the moment. But for the last 8 years, nothing. And they keep withdrawing cases from me. And they think it's okay to take you for 2.6 years through 40 mentions at a time and then pull the case last minute because there's no evidence, which is really what this is about. This is about particulars.
And this seems to be, I guess, a horrific tactic employed by the system here to harass you, you know, dragging you through these things and then dropping it at the last minute because they've got nothing. And then you're not an isolated case. This is something that's happening throughout this country to so many different people. It's lawfare at its finest, you know. I mean, the ABC did their lawfare and the sovereign citizen garbage, you know, and trying to make people all out to be insane. But we've got clear case evidence here that this is happening left, right, and center. It's beyond a joke, you know. Where
and then
how's anybody supposed to respect the authority when they do this?
Well, that's the point I wanted to make earlier as well. They're actually creating their own problem. So we've got all this media about sovereign citizens. Jackie Lambie's fantastic show on Parliament floor the other day, sovereign citizens and anti-vaxxers, right? You know, it's actually the system itself that is creating the problem, because if you can't get justice using the Justices Act, and the Justices Act is not being followed to the T, and as a self-represented litigant, when you raise these matters in court, you're literally screamed at, what a load of garbage, get yourself together. I could label many other things I've been called by magistrates and judges.
That sounds rather abusive.
I actually told them it is abuse. It was actually printed in the paper that a judge abused me, that I said I won't be abused by him. And in the recent one where I was abused by a magistrate, she kindly brushed it over at the next mention and said, that was a misunderstanding, Miss Ward. And I said, no, it wasn't. I recorded it.
Whose misunderstanding was it, hers or yours?
Yeah, that's right. Because in fact, what I had raised in the matter, I was actually correct. So she was telling me I didn't have jurisdiction to bring a matter to court. And she's since emulated my words in other cases that I've sat in the gallery and watched. And it appears different magistrates do different things and it's not being watched. So what I found was section 154 to go and have a look at my file to see if my particulars were there. And even after the case, my particulars were labelled Exhibit 1. I never got a copy of Exhibit 1. And when I went to my file to look for Exhibit 1, the Magistrates Court said that they've committed up the material to the Mackay Court for my appeal. So we drove to Mackay to have a look at that file and wasn't able to look at it because it was on the judge's desk. So consequently, they've now sent me a copy of my file. None of the handwritten notes that are on the back of the file, only the front of the file. And I noticed that Exhibit 1 was not in there. So I don't know how they're even attempting to get the to get it together. And if anything, the DPP should have provided that. And I hassled the magistrate in the Proserpine Court and said, it has to be somewhere. I need it for my appeal. It is the most important document for my entire appeal. A couple of days later, I found it. I found it.
Well, these people live on paperwork. I mean, it's only their sole purpose in life, you know. They remind me very much of, what was that race in bloody Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? You know, you don't ever let them read poetry. I can't think of the name of them. You know, they remind me of that mob. You know, the bloody Grogans or Gorgons or something. I don't know. Whatever. Somebody help me out in the audience. What was the name of that race in Hitchhiker's Guide? But you know, they essentially live on paperwork and they can't sort it out. It's only their job.
I got a very big apology for that. But I said, do you know how detrimental that is? That is the primary document. And I don't understand how, if that's the private document, why that wasn't sent to Mackay. Oh, I'm sorry. You know, so at the end of the day, it can't be excused. But the classic is I have a copy of that document here. And it's already been marked Exhibit 1. I'm told it's a stamp, which it could be, but it's still not sealed or stamped by the court. And it's been labelled Exhibit 1, which goes against those case law that I've just said. So does it happen in everyone's case that they start this on a notice to appear, a bench sheet that's not sealed, filed, doesn't have particulars, or a bail that you're forced to sign? I was talking to Daryl O'Brien before, and he tells me that Queensland's the only state that this happens. I can't be sure. We're just having a chat, and normally you'd get a summons and complaint and a brief of evidence, but they are sealed in court, which would be the right way to do it. But my question would be is, if nobody in the past, present, or future this is happening, the people involved have to know what they're doing, don't they?
You'd think so. It's only their job.
Well, it's the most primary part of their job.
Exactly.
It is like the most
said, like filing paperwork and having everything to the letter of the law and correct interpretations and procedures is the basis of their existence. Now, if they can't fulfill their own base parameters, how could anybody else be expected to respond?
And that's what makes me question that in paragraph 10 of my transcript on first day, the magistrate actually says, I asked registry to get a copy of the particulars so as Mrs. Ward knows what's happening, as does the court. Why is a magistrate doing the job of that? Shouldn't that be a police job? Would be my thought, that is what they have to do in order to bring the complaint to court, to make it valid within the jurisdiction. And if they hadn't filed those in court and I had raised that they had not been in court pursuant to those high court precedents, that would have been to my advantage, and the case would have been struck out. So I'm very well aware that I am not the only one that this happens to, and I'm fairly sure, sitting in some recent trials, it happens to everybody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was recently in with jury duty, and I obviously can't talk about the case in any particulars,
Okay.
that have sort of happened within that. But what was evident to me was that the police prosecution had such a ridiculous case and had done their job so poorly that the jury was dismissed. And it's like, well, we were told this. It's very rare for them to do this, to just dismiss an entire situation. But the whole case, everything was just thrown out because the police prosecution had presented such a horrifically badly constructed argument. And even those two sitting in the jury, we were discussing, going, "This is pretty bad." Like, this is one of the thinnest cases I've ever seen. It is the most circumstantial shit I've ever seen. And I think once they called one of the first witnesses in, and it basically destroyed the prosecution's case with their first witness, it was all over.
I happened in this other day, but in my case, Justice Farr put on record, the one I won in 11 minutes, said that he'd never seen a more trivial case in 3 decades.
Wow.
But that is going back to that comment on record by a judge. And here we are, nearly
doing it again.
7 years later. It hasn't stopped. It's been ongoing, ongoing. And my appeal, to me, is foolproof on papers, prima facie evidence. And I've got the DPP now seeking to strike out my appeal application. Right. And or they're making up. So the job of the DPP is not to win at all costs. It is to provide the facts. And even if they're in error, or the people below them are in error, they have to concede to that. And there's high court precedents on that too. They can't be seen to be taking advantage of the court or the opponent. Their job is not to win. This case I was in the other day, same thing, the 2 witnesses, completely laughable, non-credible, actually had the wrong day, the wrong date, the wrong incident, whatever happened. It was completely fabricated. It was laughable, right? And the prosecution got up. He was sweating. He was nervous. And I understand he vomited during the not guilty finding.
Wow.
He actually said, Your Honour, I have proven beyond reason, the prosecution has proven beyond reasonable doubt that so-and-so assaulted so-and-so. That's not even his job to do that. That's the magistrate's job. He should have said, I've provided the facts here, Your Honour, and it's in Your Honour's hands. So they're convincing themselves.
Yeah, I that's not the first time I've heard or seen of lawyers doing that, where they attempt to take over the court and pretend that they have somehow, the judge, jury, and executioner, like they themselves are Judge Dredd.
Oh, this prosecutor told me the other day, he's a Crown Law officer and he works for DJAG, Department of Justice and Attorney General. He later went, I don't get paid enough to be a Crown officer. I said, oh, the pay grade thing. Yeah, I love that. I love that comment, not my pay grade.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess in closing, for me, it's more about where it goes to from here, whether they're going to allow me to do it. Oh, no, I've got one other thing. The Legal Service Commissioner, I've been asking them why they keep talking about my case as a prosecution, because it's in the Supreme Court under the Uniform Civil Procedure Rules. So that says it's a civil matter. And there's a reply that's just come back the other day that they're unsure as to why that was used, but perhaps it was in reference to the Oxford Dictionary. I went back and I said, I'm astounded. Wouldn't you be looking at the glossary in the legislation to know what it means before writing it?
If you were going to pull a dictionary, wouldn't you use the Australian dictionary, the Macquarie, I believe it is? That's the instruction manual for how to use the language, I believe.
This is the commission that's in charge of 18,000 lawyers, solicitors and barristers, referencing Oxford Dictionary as to their word prosecution. So
not even a law dictionary.
No. Oxford Dictionary.
Fuck me.
I was astounded.
British, isn't it? Oxford? That's the British dictionary, isn't it?
Oh, I don't really care. It's not legalese and it's not legislation, right?
Yeah.
So then they went on. Then they went on to tell me what happened in my absence from not being allowed to appear in court, and then they gave me legal advice as to what I should do next, as my opponent, who are not appointed by me to give me legal advice, and that's the registrar's job to advise me of the outcome of the proceedings and what happened, and it's up to me to work out what to do next. Yet in writing, they actually told me what I am supposed to do. So we have the Legal Service Commissioner in my own case being sued by the Commissioner, breaching the legal profession, and they're still continuing.
It's madness. I can only put it down to pure ego. That's why they're so egocentric. They cannot accept that they've completely ballsed this up.
Yep.
And it's just a hit job on you. How dare you learn things and get yourself sorted, self-represent, and then have the audacity to communicate that to your fellow man. What a horrible person you are.
No, it was more there's a little bit more to it, because I had a brochure that said I was a legal advocate, but it has on there, I'm not a lawyer. And then the newspaper wrote a non-verbatim article, which was released, which they jumped on, which is not verbatim to the transcript. Then they're saying I tried to grandstand as a lawyer when I asked for leave to appear as a Mackenzie's friend, didn't say anything other than my name, and was kicked out of the court. And I made a president for Queensland. And I did fill in an application whereby I was applicant 1 and Jessica Hanbury was applicant 2. And I filed on behalf of the applicants. I filed on behalf of myself, so being an interested party because of HZX. And they're saying that I gave her legal advice. She's written an affidavit to say that didn't happen. And that application was for a strikeout and a writ of mandamus or prohibition to the Supreme Court to protect her because of the precedent HZX. And consequently, that was struck out. Last week, I believe she was in the paper. I haven't spoken to her for a while. In the paper, she's won everything from her murder charges down to birth certificate. Every single charge has either been dropped or she's been found not guilty. The entire purpose for that application.
Wow. And of course, it's all your fault.
Yeah, my fault. I'm a danger. I'm a danger to the public.
Menace to society.
Yeah.
Proving that the system's the real menace has been exposed, and that's what they don't like.
The commissioner has a duty to keep the public safe. For the like myself. So, other than that, in the injunction, you have to.
How does that see? And I guess this is obviously the conundrum for the system. How do they keep the people safe from the very ones like themselves who are doing the wrong thing? Like, and it's one of those things I kind of point out to a lot of people who use the common law sort of approach, which is, like you said, you're going in to play tennis, you've got to stick to the rules of tennis, whereas a lot of the common law camp, tend to sort of think they can walk in there and make their own rules and say, no, we're playing baseball today, but
I've been there. I've tried it. Don't worry, because I wasn't getting
justice.
Doesn't work.
No.
And I tried it because I was frustrated. I'm not saying I don't still believe in it, in potentially some of it, but it doesn't work. So playing tennis in the tennis court is the really important thing. And I think there's an easy way to fix this and bring it back online, and that is for the police, if they're going to file a ment sheet or a notice to appear, to put the particulars on there and sign and seal and serve it and put their name on it, right? But
and for the court system to hold them to it, do your bloody job properly.
Yep. So, and the problem is from what I'm seeing, because now it's on my certificate of an exhibit, the respondent or the complainant is actually the officer themselves under the guise of ES or DPP or whatever it might be, but there has to actually be a named person as the complainant. And that's kind of a problematic thing as well, because that means every police officer is doing this of their own accord without them knowing it under being a member of a team. That's only my assumption. And I know if I was a police officer right now, I would be very concerned, or I'd be going and getting my own indemnity insurance.
I love this comment here by Joanna. It's less hassle if you wield a machete inside an AGA. You know, that's astoundingly true. Unfortunately, it is a strange state of affairs. But yeah, I mean, this system needs to get itself together. You know, and because they're part, like you said, they are part of the problem. They're hanging themselves with their own egos. It's
and like
madness.
I said to the senior constable, the senior sergeant now at the station, I'm not against the police. I did a podcast the other day with an ex-police. I've done one with other police. We need them. We need frontline workers. We absolutely need them.
But we need good police, and the good ones are the ones that are leaving because they can't handle the system, because the system is broken. Yep.
And I'm not going to say where I believe it's broken here, but you know, my comment is if there's 1,000 good police officers and there's one bad police officer, and the 1,000 don't do anything about the bad one, we've got 1,001 bad police officers. And you know, these things come down to their jobs, their family, their this and that. Better put your head in the sand. Don't see this, didn't see this, don't want to be involved in this. I get it, right? But these are frontline workers, and I just don't know where they get the amount of people to come in Victoria to do this after one man. You know, I'm not saying that he was potentially not on a different track with a different law, but he may have ended up in that place or frustration because of what I've pointed out just in this case. So I've literally had over 8 years of this, and that's pretty serious. 3 cases that never made it to trial. The amount of work that it takes to prepare for trial, the amount of mentions in between, the one winning, and then this one was 2.4 years, which they went and changed the charge, which potentially is statute barred from bringing it anyway. What would I know? And my concern is in my appeal that all of these things will be totally overlooked. And now that there's a conflict of interest because I've been barred, they have apprehended bias towards me already. So anyway, it's an appeal. So we'll go from there. But I just, for me, if I was to be charged again, the first thing I'd be doing is going into the court under Section 154 of the Justices Act and asking to see my file and see if my particulars were on file. And if they weren't, I'd be asking where they are and why they're not filed in the court. And if they could be filed in the court, and then that way it would proceed it the right way pursuant to those case laws that I've given you. And you wouldn't be forced to filming yourself, and you wouldn't be put in these positions that you're literally at a loss as what to do. I'll work it out, don't worry. I really actually want to be in the High Court at the moment, but I can't get there until I exhaust the lowest jurisdiction. So if they don't let me appeal, I'll just keep going. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're going to hang themselves in the end. So, and you know, and again, Joanna's pointed out, made a great point here. The cost to the public for these people to play legal warfare, you know, purely over their own ego is the only thing that I can think of. You know, it's just my guess, it's my assumption. I don't know if there's some other more premeditated reason for them doing what they're doing to you. You know, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, the legal service
this is what's considered justice in this country, or even in Queensland.
The service commissioner is also not liable for an undertaking to damages if they bring this injunction against me, and it's struck out because the legislation's written that the commission doesn't have to take an undertaking, but they can charge me costs when they're already paid as a public servant. And further, that I don't have representation, and I can't get representation to go against them. There's multiple reasons. Cost, legal aid won't do it. It's a civil matter. I'm me, and this is the commissioner of the entire state. So I don't know how, one, that can be fair if I'm not provided legal if I wasn't offered, at the very least, legal aid or legal representation. I am in 20 stage of it doesn't matter whether you can afford something, whether, hardship is very different to whether you can or you can't afford something.
Yes.
And I'm in that
and the
bracket.
exuberant costs of fighting things in a court. And again, why does justice cost so much?
That's right.
To me, that is an injustice unto itself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, but then if I did have the money and I was to employ someone at this stage, God knows how much it would have cost, because you're up against the commissioner. What lawyer, barrister, solicitor, let's just say lawyer, would be willing to, at a reasonable price, go against the very regulator that regulates them? That would be a conflict of interest, would it not?
Yeah. And again, this is something that I've seen happen a few times, where there are good lawyers who have gone and done things like this and have gone and stood up against certain elements. I'm not going to name names or point fingers or whatnot, but these stories are all over the place of lawyers doing the right thing and go, right, we'll do one pro bono. Let's help these people and get the right thing going. And they end up having their licenses to practice law revoked.
Yeah.
Again, pointing out a horrific injustice within the alleged justice system.
Well, all I can say is that what I've learned is particulars are not Christmas decorations.
But it is a really cool plug-in for After Effects. I've waited an hour for an opportunity to put that joke in there. It's been killing me. And it only makes sense to probably me, because I don't know how many other people out there watching this even know what After Effects is. But that's the program I used to do on my designs and stuff for those. And particular is a particle generator. So when you watch the introduction to this show and you see the stars and all the particles flying through, that's from particular.
So I guess where I'll finish up here is where I've trying to take a two wrongs don't make a right situation. I've now asked for mediation, alternate dispute resolution, or case conferencing with those involved in my matters, so that we can actually flesh out all of this behind the scenes rather than in the courtroom, one for the expense, one because it's embarrassing to certain people, which might be in their best interest. At least show that I have attempted to meet my opponent. There's a lot of case law, and I think there's a Bible verse to meet your opponent before you go to court and try and work out things.
Attempt to make peace with your fellow man, as Darren has always said.
Yep. So potentially, whether it's right or wrong that I film myself and put it on Facebook, I was pushed to a point of safety in this matter, and that's just what it was. And it was also an instant trigger because of the way things were unraveling in front of me that were not correct procedure, and I was totally ignored. It was my application. I should have been addressed, and Miss Moss did not have jurisdiction to be bringing up the matters that she did, let alone sitting there smirking at me.
Again, there's the ego.
Yeah. So particulars. I would think those court files would have to be filed in the court to make it a valid jurisdiction to proceed. And the problem is when people raise this in court, when they go in, oh, we're not having this, how ridiculous, and they literally get abused and screamed at by the magistrates.
Yeah. Too frustrating. Hang on, I'm the magistrate. Why do you know these things? Almost, would seem to be the attitude I'm gathering and guessing.
The other day, there were some people in front of the court, and similar thing happened with the aggravation being dropped on his charge. And I was sitting in the gallery, and I just was interested to what it was, because I wanted to know if, in regards to my own case. And the prosecutor said it was dropped from 340 AG to 335 common assault, which is not what happened to me. Exactly the same thing didn't happen to me. And I said to him, is 335 an indictable offence? And he goes, yeah, it is. And I just started laughing. I'm like, okay, then, righty-go. And I looked at a solicitor that's sitting there who's been on a few of my cases, that I started laughing. I'm like, okay, it's an indictable offence, is it? So this gentleman picked up what I said and asked the magistrate, if 335 was an indictable offence. And she's like, yes, 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 yes. And then she saw me in the background and obviously thought needed to be justified. And she read out what she thought it was. And as she got to the end, she looked up at me and I just smiled at her and went, right. So she didn't even know. This is after saying she'd been a criminal lawyer for 20 years, she said to this defendant, and went on and said the most basic common assault, the most basic charge she probably would be of dealing with for 20 years, and she had it wrong.
Wow. And people are paying these people money. I mean, this is another case of, they're misrepresenting themselves as 20 years of experience of getting it wrong.
This is the prosecutor and the magistrate.
Let's
and yes,
put that on my resume. I've been doing this job for 20 years, completely fucking wrong. Please hire me. What?
Hey, I could be wrong. 335 could be an indictable offence, but I don't see it under the Schedule 1 of offences, and it's not what she read out to the court. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I can't say. I'm just saying that's my perception of what I saw.
Yeah, that's it. Well, we are allowed to have an opinion still, aren't we? I mean, it's starting to feel like we don't. We're not supposed to have one. And that's why they need to regulate the internet in this country and various other horrible things. Martin's made this observation. Isn't it the People's Court? Well, that's interesting. I've quite commonly heard the judge go, "This is my courtroom."
Well, that's what happened.
So,
that's exactly. If you go and have a look at what happened, as I spoke up, he said, "Miss Ward, this is my court." And I said, "No, it's not. It's for the people and by the people." And he said, "It is my court." And I said, "It is for the people and by the people."
Just like this network. I just host this. This is everybody's. This is North Queensland's Freedom Network. I'm just a guy who fucking just happens to keep it running. I'm like the custodian.
Well, I said if it is his courtroom, then he's acting in persona designata, which is where the Crimes Act 1914 in certain sections now has changed, and it actually says a judge acting in their personal capacity or private capacity, which is a much bigger picture to delve into, onto maybe who is administrating the country at the moment, or where we're seeing this explosion globally of bad things happening, and what treaties and what blah, 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 blah are involved. So are they actually working for us, or are they working for themselves? I don't know. But they always say, "This is my courtroom."
Yeah. And again, that's the ego. The ego is taking control at this point when you see somebody doing that. I am, you said it, so therefore you must be, get philosophical.
Oh, that's what Darryl brought up before. He brought up the three little pigs. He goes, they're just huffing and puffing and trying to blow your house down.
This house is made of bricks.
Yeah, we had a bit of a giggle about that.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Patty, it's called the barrel effect. Only takes one apple to change the belief system and not question anything.
So, that's not me. I question everything and I learn everything. And the more that they push me and the more that they do these things every day, I'm learning new sections of the law, and I'm learning this and the amazing Chat GPT, being able to just like talk into it and draft up documents that haven't got spelling mistakes because you're rushing and blah, blah, blah.
And do a better job than the lawyers. Hey, give this Lumo one a go. See what that comes up with. Okay? Because this is supposed to be a private AI chat, as they're claiming. One of the blurbs that are
public, because I argue with it all the time, and I say, well, that's not that case law, that's not that section of the law, and because it's only learning from what you put into it.
Yeah, I've certainly noticed that the AI at the moment gets a lot of things wrong, and again, you can't rely on it. It's a handy tool, but you can't let the hammer build the house. Somebody's got to swing it. And I see there's a lot of people who are concerned about AI, but we need to know about it and we have to understand it, in order to use it against those who are trying to use it against us, and like you've done and demonstrated so well, the more they throw at you, the more you're learning, and we have to give them thanks for that. They're giving you a wonderful education, and I want to thank you for coming on this podcast and sharing that wonderful education with us and the broader community so that we can all learn together.
Yeah. I'm not giving anyone legal advice. You do your own homework, go away, research it, do your own thing. It's not my problem, right? And please don't start ringing me after this and telling me about traveling in your automobile or something like that. So, but collectively, if we can just get those few basic things, like knowing that you can look at your file, knowing that the particulars should be on file, knowing what the particulars are so you can prepare for your trial if that's what you choose to do, knowing that when you do have a relevant defence or not relevant defence, and they're your rights, and that's what should happen.
That's it.
It's not hard.
That's it. Give us actual justice, not just the illusion thereof. There's some questions that have been starred here I want to have a look at. Are you posting on Rumble? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that, Norb, and why we're Norb. I'm not even going to try and say that. It's doing my head in. But anyway, you know who you are. Your name's there. Well, this is going to Rumble. You've commented from Rumble. So from that perspective, this show has gone to Rumble, and I can see evidently so. If you mean in some other manner, well, I don't know, was the links I posted, did that not come up? Can you help me out? If you need any help, and this goes to everybody and anybody, NQ Freedom Network at protonmail.com. Like I said, I'm just the custodian of this network. This is the people's network, so jump on and share in any way, shape or form. Feel free to contact me and we'll get some stuff sorted one way or the other. Back to the comments. Thank you, Tyler, for finally saying Happy Father's Day. You must have obviously been wanting to do it in a more public setting. Thank you, son. I appreciate it. How can we obey the law when it is undefined? Well, it seems to be pretty well defined. It's more that they're pulling the wool over our eyes, in a sense. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
If in the Justices Act, I was talking to Daryl again this morning about that, from what I can read again, what I'm reading, it does say that you'll get your particulars after you make a plea. Can't remember what number, but then 42 says the opposite of. So it's actually
so it contradicts itself.
That's right. Yeah. And I think that a lot of those, in my opinion, do that because it gives an ouster for the lawyers to make money and look like they're arguing when.
Yeah.
And if these lawyers are not checking this, then why are they charging?
Yeah. Again, why has nobody brought that contradiction up? You've got scores of legal minds all through this country, from lawyers to judges. Why hasn't somebody contacted their local parliament and gone, this law needs to be fixed? Is it this way or that way? You can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too, as some might say. So it seems to me that our political system needs to amend these inconsistencies.
We have something in the pipelines to do that. Yeah.
So it's good to know that answers the next question. I don't have to ask it. It was my question. Was what is that being put forward? Do we need to sort of get a big email campaign going to mail bomb our alleged representatives and get them to do their jobs? I'm sorry, I don't know this guest. I think you've actually answered that question. Not long after they asked it, you kind of went into more detail. Martin says, Heidi, as you are not considered as a lawyer, does the judiciary, respectfully consider you as a learned contender in their legal world? Wow. I kind of feel like this podcast would suggest otherwise, but go ahead.
So I will say that on 2 occasions, I was told that I got the exact words, but it was pretty much the most educated self-represented litigant that 2 judges seen before them. My answer to that was not helping me very much, right? So, recently that same judge that commended me then told me in a judicial review in a council matter that my matter was incomprehensible, but we've never heard anything from that incident. Not going into that today again, so I see that as a win. Then another matter, I had 2 police officers standing inside the court when I was the only one in there, and I refused to continue under the intimidation of those police officers with the magistrate. And the magistrate said, well, she didn't seem to have any problems with me and that they had to leave. So do they consider me a learned contender or a learned friend? I don't know. I haven't got the answer to that one.
Yeah, it does seem to be some mixed views there, definitely. But like you were saying, you know, in one hand they're patting you on the back, and the other he's saying your argument is incomprehensible. Is that because he didn't have the comprehension himself to comprehend it?
Oh,
you know, is that was he? It's almost like I'm perceiving that as you've just insulted yourself because you don't understand it, or are you trying attempt to, you know, say something else? I don't know.
At the end of my trial, the magistrate actually said, you're vile. He called me vile. He said, you're clearly not an uneducated woman, so put me on a different to everyone else, right? Because what he commented about the main witness having mental health, right? Put me on a different thing. But then he turned around and he said, I did not show any remorse for my conduct, and I showed contempt for the police. Now, I was defending myself. And if you've listened to what I've just been through, it's very hard for me to have respect for the police.
Yeah. I just sent a response to that question. These law pages we're talking about, this is available on Constitution Watch, what we were talking about here. The link is there on Constitution Watch. The Justices Act, you just got to type Justices Act Queensland in and you'll find that. But I'll post that here. Let me know if this is actually coming up in Rumble. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it does, but if it doesn't, let me know. Any links to any of this stuff, by all means, just shoot me an email. If I browsed over something and I forgot to post a link and you would like a link to it, just let me know, ladies and gentlemen. More than happy to help out. In a lot of cases, we set a lot of these things in motion 5 minutes before the show with a couple of, you know, searches. You know, as long as you've got the words, you know, in this particular case, here's old mate's name. You can say that. What was it again?
Kyriakis versus County Court Victoria.
There you go. So, you know, obviously the spelling Kyriazis County Court of Victoria. You punch that in and it comes up. That's all I've done here. You know, a lot of the times the answer is really simple. You've just got to ask the right question, and the internet is there at your disposal. You know, I was actually just talking to somebody the other day. Like the first time I sat in front of the internet, the World Wide Web, it's like, wow, the world is at my fingertips. I can't think of a question. But I've certainly solved that problem now. You know, and I have many questions and I have the right way to ask them, and I find that I get the answers. And if you didn't get the right answer the first time, perhaps you didn't ask the question right. So, you know, look internally first.
I got onto ChatGPT. I don't think I slept for 3 days. I just was like,
went nuts on it.
Yeah.
So, Peyton Cheryl here, head scratch. Why are some people absolutely being singled out and being so obviously railroaded? All this is accomplishing is showing the public how perversely corrupt the judicial system has become. Once there seemed hope that the judicial system was our hope above the shoddy politics, now the hope seems to have been dashed too. Sympathy to Heidi. It's a wonderful question. You've definitely asked the right question. What the answer is, I could only speculate. In my humble opinion, I would say certain people are being singled out as to make an example so that the rest of you will not stand up. This is, you know, the whole punish the one person and everybody else will fall in line out of fear is my opinion. you know. But also, as I've stated throughout this podcast, I think in a lot of cases there is the ego of these people that they are the law. They think they're Judge Dredd, you know. They're running around, I'm the law. This is my court. This is me. I'm in control here. You little peon, bow. You know, it's an ego-driven thing in some cases,
I can
or
say
it could be a combination.
I can say in my matter in general, I can almost pinpoint the individual I call Dibba Dobba Diva, Dibba Dobba Diva Rovino. So I wrote a little poem, not using her name the other day, but it rhymes nicely. So I'm almost 100% it's her and the culture around her. And it's not just in my case. I've heard of so many cases, but some of the letters that she sent me in certain things, I know her position. And she is the I'm right, you're wrong. I have the power. I am this. I am that. Yeah. And
pure service to self-ego.
Sits in the back of the court and actually laughs at people, and then says, "What am I not allowed to laugh?" When you pull her up, oh no, it's just someone's life. It's just something really serious, but you do, you know. So I'm pretty.
You'd like to see this person face down in a pile of shit and laugh and go, "What am I not allowed to laugh?"
Yeah. There seems to be this disparity, even when questioning the registrars and things like that about things that are going on, to the point, oh, you should be happy. You won your case. What is there to be happy about winning your case? You've just spent 2 years of your life, probably all your money, and you know what? You should be happy. Because it should never have been in the court in the first place.
That's where's the win when you've lost so much irreplaceable time? Where's the win? You know, and again, you can't help but feel that's part of the way this injustice system, for lack of a better term, seems to function. You know, it's punishing you for standing up for yourself. It punishes you as soon as they engage with you in some way, shape, or form. It is you're instantly punished. You're instantly guilty. You know, just by the accusation in a lot of cases.
And they hate self-represented litigants. Hate them. So by saying to me now that I'm not allowed to appear by telephone because it's an indulgence for a self-represented litigant. Right?
Oh, wow.
It's an indulgence.
So they're not affording. Yeah. So that's madness.
If I got a lawyer, it'd be different. Right. Yeah. So potentially because, you know, they're also trained to not say anything. So I do know that there's a few lawyers that have contacted people indirectly and are certainly sitting back because they can't do what they'd like to do, because once they swear their oath, they're they're bound to the court and they're bound to that. Yeah.
So obviously, ladies and gentlemen, we've all got a lot to work on here because the system itself is very broken. We need to come together to work on this one. You know, if you've got the mindset for it, Struth, get in there. You know, you feeling desire to want to learn it, learn it. You know, it's you know, one of the questions that was posed the other night was, you know, what do we do? All right, again, I'll address that a little bit better this time. I was actually kind of a bit frustrated with the question because to me, the first thing you need to do when you're screaming at the sky, what do we do, is look internally, not outwardly, in my opinion. You know, you need to start going, well, what can I do? You know, look at yourself in the mirror and, you know, challenge yourself, break down the walls of your own perception. You know, look at the I cans, not the I can'ts. You know, I can't do this, I can't do that. Why can't you do that? You know, I remember during the COVID scenario, a friend of mine called me up throwing up. Oh, they're making me get the jab. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. You know, so all right, cool. You don't want to do it. So who's making you do it? And instantly the light turns on. Oh yeah, I don't have to go. There you go. I saved the man. You know, thankfully we're just getting him to look into himself and realizing, well, if you don't want to do it, don't do it.
There's a really great method for doing that. It's called an ikigai. So the ikigai is the Japanese word for purpose, and it's a 5-step process. And it's really to try and work out what your purpose is. But what are all the things that you love to do? I love to pat the dog. I like to drink beer. I like to go riding. I like to do yoga. You write all the things you like to do,
Mm.
and then on the next bit, you write all the things you're actually good at. And you have to be realistic. If you like to sing, but you're not an opera singer, you got to be realistic with yourself.
Yeah, I like to
And
sing,
then,
but I suck.
yeah. So you find out what you like to do, what you can do, and then, you know, will it bring some money in? Will it change the purpose? Will it put a roof over my head? And the fifth purpose is, will it give back to society? And if you can meet that ikigai, you'll find the purpose for what you're looking for.
Thank you very much. That is exactly
You know,
a wonderful strategy.
I didn't do uni, but I did 4 advanced diplomas in psychology, criminology, criminal justice, and counselling, and they use those sort of techniques in some of those areas. Yeah.
Awesome. So I hope that helps the general public out there with that. What do I do?
Well, narcissism is a hard thing, and the court is very narcissistic. So when you have this belief system that you're going to get justice, and they're outright lying to your face or yelling at you or screaming at you, it's a really hard thing. And when you're looking at your documents going, that didn't happen, and why isn't that signed? What's going on? It is a hard place, but I guess
and you would have to have a great deal of confidence in yourself and what is true, and obviously strength of character to stand up against that.
Yeah. Don't worry, I've had times that I haven't, right? There's been multiple times, and I did plead guilty to a breach of bail on the matter that I won in 11 minutes, which wasn't a breach of bail because at the time it was so much going on, and I was convinced $200 no conviction recorded, and that would be the case. It took me 4 hours before I pled guilty, and the police officer was one of the police officers I trusted, and I went, okay. Anyway, I saw her the other day, and she's, hey, Heidi, how you going? I said, oh, g'day. I'm not going to say her name. G'day, how you going? And I said, look at you. You're now a fully fledged prosecutor. And she goes, yeah. And I said, oh, you've lost some weight. Good on you. She goes, oh, I heard you were saying that I was one of the police officers that you really trusted the other day. And I said, oh, have you been watching some shows of mine, have you? And she goes, oh, well. And I said, I did say that, but you obviously didn't listen past that, because I said you're the only one that convinced me to plead guilty, and that's the only reason I have that on my file. And when you're the prosecutor against me next week, we're not friends, and I don't trust you anymore, and don't even try and look at me. Right? So, and she didn't. She was very well behaved. Right? She's tried to smile at me when I walked in, and I said, I'm not doing it. Because I did. I liked her. I thought she was great. And she's in there now doing the very thing that I know she hates to do. Because and I've heard her speaking, and it's just like, you know, she's just seeing everyone as criminals.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you? Again, this is like a big philosophical question more than anything. You know, how do you go and do something that you fucking hate, or something that you know is wrong, and continue on? Yeah. It's a very fascinating psychological construct. We might actually have to have that conversation in a more psychological podcast, perhaps.
The pathological patterns of narcissism. I can tell you all about it.
Yes, I believe we have had these conversations before, but I think we've bounced around so many different topics. I think we should do one that is solely psychology, seeing it's something you're so well versed in and something I have a great interest in myself.
I wouldn't say I'm so well, but I've got a bit of something.
Well, I just, trial and error. You've gone and done the bookwork thing, and that I found that's a wonderful combination. Like in a previous band I was in, Convicted Souls, I was the self-taught musician, and I know it's so ironic given what we're talking about. But the bass player, he was very well learned. So he had all the book smarts, I had all the freedom smarts, and they worked. We got that to work really well together. So what each of us lacked, so I didn't have that book smarts knowledge stuff, he had that, so that fixed a lot of the problems I had, but he really lacked the creativity side that comes from the free way I'd taught myself, because he'd been so regimented within the system, and merging those two concepts.
I hadn't.
Sorry.
I might have been a business, but I had a bookkeeper and I had this and that. I didn't read. I didn't, up until say 10 years ago when this all started for me, I was forced to learn. They forced me to learn.
Yeah.
So now I love learning. I love researching. I love books. I love all of that. And it was something I didn't have before.
So we have to thank these people, I guess. There's the gift in the winning there, and we got to look for those silver linings in the shitstorm they throw in, And again, I have to thank the wonderful tyrannical government for all the horrible things that they continue to do, because it's bringing us all together. And without their horrible nastiness and their desire to try and rule the world and make us all slaves, I wouldn't have met wonderful people like yourself and Daryl and Darren and all the other wonderful guests we have here on this show. So, the only people that really need to be blamed for us and what we're doing is the very people who hate us, because you made us this way.
Yeah, it's the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy themselves,
Exactly.
And I think people are starting to realize we can't chase that horse that's bolted. We have to look at other avenues and find out where it's resting, where it's drinking, and what have you, to bring about different ways, because as it's escalating now, there's a lot of silence from those that didn't see it. That's going to rise up again and again and again. And the harder they come in, I think it'll just be the money situation. That'll be their last trick. So that's the concern.
Yeah. Well, the money situation as it stands, I like to call it the cost of government crisis, as opposed to the cost of living crisis, because it's not like our lives suddenly cost more. It's the fact that they've devalued money and they've destroyed, the economy. That's the real thing, and that's the cost of government, the cost of the government's bad decisions. That's why it's, in my opinion, a cost of government crisis. We're already living that, and that's what's really waking a lot of people up. I honestly, everywhere I go, even yesterday, I'm not going to talk too much about yesterday, because I don't want to point fingers to where I go and what I do sometimes. But some pretty high up people, people that are sort of in the public eye sort of thing, they all agree with what's going on, that this is something wrong. There's obviously varying degrees, but everyone I speak to can see that there's something seriously wrong with our system today. Whether it's just you can't afford to live, or whether you can see the systemic corruption itself. There's the levels, but not one person I speak to on my day-to-day lives do I come across people who are going, yeah, I'm fucking happy, everything in Australia is great. Nobody says that. Nobody. Unless, I guess, your elbow, and you can go around going, I run this country.
But it's not even a matter of just saying it's great. You could actually say to these people, what's the problem for you? And they can tell you, can't afford the food, can't afford this, can't do that, can't afford the mortgage, been working too much, been working long hours, taxes coming up. They've just brought in new Airbnb rules in our area that they've got to now do all these updates for, short-term accommodation, which costs money, whatever it might be, where they're tightening up all these Big Brother stuff. It's affecting everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, even at that upper end of the society where, most people look up and go, wow, I want to be, one of these sort of people in the higher end, they're suffering too, because their high-end lifestyle is no longer affordable to them either. So therefore, they're being forced to come down with us little peasants in a lot of ways, and they don't like that either. Nobody's happy.
And then I think if you go higher than that, the people that are in the positions potentially doing this didn't know what they had themselves involved in until they're involved in it.
Yes, and they're now being grabbed by the short and curlies.
Leave that one right there.
Yes.
All right, well, you go enjoy your Father's Day. I'm going to get out in the garden with sunshine, and thanks for having me. But all I can say is, from what I've learnt, the particulars are the most important thing. And if they're not on file and they're not stamped and they're not sealed, I just don't know how you can just have this random copy that the police sent to you. Where would the separation of powers be? The court's supposed to be a safe place to hold the file. Everyone has a copy of everything, so it's all above board.
That's it. And, you know, we're supposed to have faith in this system. We're supposed to have faith that these people are doing the right thing, you know, and if we can't have faith in the justice system, what can you have faith in this country?
Oh, that's right. So anyway, just fairness would be nice. Just, you know, and like, you know, the magistrate said the other day, I can get it wrong. There are avenues for you. So flippantly, like, so what if I get it wrong? Right? For that person, that means putting in an application because it costs $1,000, the lawyer fees, that this, and that. And it shouldn't be so flippant. But the truth is we can all get it wrong. Right? But own it when you do. Don't try and cover it up with another wrong.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
It's okay to make a mistake so long as you learn from it.
That's right.
No worries. Well, thank you very much, Heidi. This has been a bit longer than we expected. But sorry?
I'm glad you made it through.
Yes, I did. I didn't have to run to the toilet. Thank you. It must be the home brew. You know, nectar of the gods saved me yet again.
All right, then.
Sips, ladies and gentlemen. No worries. Thank you very much, Heidi. We'll see you here again shortly. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to say a big thanks to Armand Gardner here, who's owned his own insult here. I am a Q-tard. Awesome. Owning your own insult. I love it. You know, that's why, you know, I became Batty Bogan. It's like, you're just a fucking bogan. Well, I owned that and turned it into a whole fucking cool idea called Bogan Nation as well. But anyway, owning your insult is a wonderful way to destroy the, you know, negativity surrounded by it. But that aside, and I believe that thanks to folks like you, the world will change drastically in the next couple of years for our benefit. IMHO. I'm not familiar with the alphabet soup, but it's going to be great. So awesome. Thank you heaps for that positive comment. You know, always welcome feedback, ladies and gentlemen. Some awesome people have been, you know, sending me feedback, constructive criticisms. You know, it's, you know, hey, this isn't quite going so well. Perhaps you want to adjust this. Appreciate that kind of commentary too, so long as you're not just being an asshole. You know, in your humble opinion, love it. You know, look, you know, always happy to have feedback. You know, whether, you know, some people have just written in recently to just say they absolutely love the shows. You know, I think it was Jason who gave us a huge pat on the back via email after Friday's podcast, because, you know, I was actually kind of a bit concerned about some of the things I said. Thought, oh, maybe I've got a bit heated there at some point, you know. So sometimes, you know, passion just flows through you and you just do what you feel is right, and sometimes you question it, and it's always good to get that kind of feedback that, hey, that was an awesome podcast. So thanks heaps, guys. Do feel free to drop me a line at NQ Freedom Network at protonmail.com for whatever reason. If you want to be a guest, you've got your own scenarios happening, whether it's just a reach out or whatever. You know, obviously we can't all do what Heidi does. You know, that's Heidi's calling. Well, what is your calling? You know, what are you doing? You know, let me know. Drop us a line. Like I said, this is your Freedom Network. I'm just a custodian of it. Speaking of which, the free 7-day trial is still there for the Gaia Network. I actually watched a really good one, and I intended to sort of go, hey, this is one you should check out. It was one on free energy, actually, with truth, I can't think of the name of the host. I was going to prepare it, but I got sidetracked. You know, I was in the toilet, so please forgive me. But yeah, there's some really good stuff on there that people should watch. I might do a short little video about, you know, some of the cool things that I've found that I find interesting. There's so much available on the Gaia Network, from meditation stuff to, you know, ancient histories to, you know, perhaps advanced technologies that are being suppressed and things to that nature. It's definitely worth a watch, you know. And like, straight Netflix, fuck that off. Gaia's got heaps better shit on it as far as I'm concerned. It costs a bit less, I think. I can't remember. I haven't looked at what it costs for Netflix, but Stake, if you're interested in shares, I've been finding a bit of fun with that. It's always good. Use the product code MarkB. You get stuff, I get stuff. It's great. You should check it out. Always check out Darren's stuff at Constitution Watch. When we're talking law, man, there's a dude who has definitely done his homework, you know. And to think that, you know, from humble beginnings as musicians, Darren and I doing our thing in the background, you know, just being musos, look at where we are now. It's not the way we intended our lives to turn out. It's just the way that the world has made us. They should be proud of what they created. I'm going to quote Marilyn Manson, which is really left of field here, but you know, I am your shit. You should be ashamed of what you have eaten. And that is my message to the world at the moment. You know, this is what you've done. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can look at in the links and descriptions. You know, I'm not going to bore you with all the sales pitchy stuff. You know, at the end of the day, it's not about the sales pitch. It's about getting the message out there. But anything you can do to help us out is always appreciated. There is, you know, PayPal links, and you can also become a Patreon. And big thanks and shout out to all the Patreons who do make that contribution, because look, this is the end of the show, right? So, you know, you've just seen the street performer, and the street performer's got his hat out. Did you enjoy the show? I gave it to you for nothing. Would you like to help a brother out? You know, this stuff does cost money. It does cost time. So anything you can show in appreciation, even if it's just some kind words, even if it's a subscribe button or a like button or a sharing it, you know. And when you share things, like people say, oh, I've shared it on my profile, but I'm preaching to the choir. Well, you don't have to just share it to a profile. You could perhaps, you know, come across an article or another post that somebody else has posted, or a mainstream media thing, you know, where they're going on sovereign citizens, where you go, well, actually get your facts straight. Have a look at this podcast that this fella Batty just did and share it that way, because now you're breaking outside your audience. So that's another way you can contribute and help without actually having to open your wallet. Just use a little bit of this, ladies and gentlemen. It's not hard. You know, they've been trying to make out like it's hard. They've tried to convince you that it's hard, whether it's teachers, politicians, television, whatever, you know, influence that has tried to grab a hold of you and tell you that you're not good enough unless you give your energy to them. You know, those are vampires, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want those kinds of people. You know, find the strength in yourself. You can do it. I have faith in you. You wouldn't be here if I didn't. If you wouldn't be here if you weren't worthy. That's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, one final sips in mateship and in friendship to my fellow man and woman. Happy Father's Day, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Father's Day, freedom men, because I'm not confused about that shit at all. Maybe a little bit in that moment, only in that moment. Sips, ladies and gentlemen.